Hi, good afternoon or good morning, whenever it is that you decide to watch this recording of University of Essex coming to City and Islington College. We're really pleased to have with us Emily Dale, the recruitment officer, and Abdullahi Isonha, I hope I'm saying that right, an accounting lecturer who's going to give us some insight into what it is to work with numbers. I hope you enjoy the session and take a lot from it. Thank you. Over to you, Emily.
Thank you. Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Emily and I'm a recruitment officer at Essex Business School. So yeah, we're just going to talk you through accounting and a little bit more about Essex Business School today. So we realise you can get a lot of information about us on our university and our school website. So we hope that this session you'll get a bit more feel for a school and how we teach our courses. So in this session, like I said, we're going to be focusing on accounting. So I'll speak to you about some of the specialist features we have available on our accounting courses. I will also discuss the assessment methods used on our courses, the support we have available in terms of academic skills, development opportunities, and also employability guidance. I'm then going to hand over to my colleague Abdullahi, who is here, one of our accounting lecturers, and he's going to talk to you a bit more about the specifics of our accounting courses, the careers they lead to, and also give us a short taster session in accounting. We're happy to take any questions, so do send them in, or we can answer them via email at a later date. So the majority of our accounting and finance degree programs are taught in the building you see here on the screen, which is Essex Business School, located on our Colchester campus, which is just about an hour away from London. So let me tell you a little bit more about Essex Business School as a whole. We are the largest department at the University of Essex and among the most internationally diverse. Students join us from all over the world, and every year our community across our two campuses in Southend and Colchester gets a little bit bigger. We work hard to make sure that our students feel part of a vibrant and friendly learning community, and we want people to feel like more than just a number to us. We aim to champion responsible management and sustainable business through our teaching and research, and our overall mission is to encourage students to do better business and make a positive impact on society. So the primary way we do this is by teaching our students to think critically about business and to challenge the underlying assumptions and never just to accept the norm. Unlike other business schools, we don't just teach traditional methods for driving profit. We encourage our students to think about business in a broader social context that considers people and the planet alongside profit. So as we're focusing on accounting and finance today, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about our Bloomberg trading floor. All EBS first year undergraduates on our Colchester campus will receive training on the Bloomberg trading floor. You can also complete the Bloomberg Market Concept Certificate, which is an additional qualification you can get as part of your course. Our Bloomberg trading floor gives you hands-on experience on dealing in stocks and shares, and training on this state-of-the-art virtual trading floor will give you access to Bloomberg business data, information and analytics used by accountants and financial professionals all over the world. However, this feature is not just for our finance and banking students. All our students can benefit from these facilities, as knowing how to use this software will really put you ahead of the game in the graduate jobs market. So the trading floor is supplied with Bloomberg financial data. Anyone who intends to work in the financial sector will probably use this kind of data and analytics regularly. So again, having that experience at university will give you a really good head start. And we have enough licenses that we can use the system in classrooms and group study sessions. Students can train independently on the system too, as there is open access to all EBS students in this study area. We also have licenses for a system called Xtrader, which is a trade simulation system, and that is attached to the live market, so you can buy and sell in real time, but without actually making any real investment. And some classes you'll find will start with a morning trade meeting, whereas the same rules would apply on kind of a real trading floor. So we're keen to give you that real world business experience. So moving on to the assessment methods we use now. At the business school, we use a range of assessment methods. So this will include the traditional methods you will have be familiar with from college. So things like end of year exams, in-class tests, and written assignments. However, we also use more innovative and creative assignments, which include computer lab work, poster presentations, and real world business studies. So things like consultancy projects. These methods allow you to show a range of different skills and for you to be assessed in a way that is more in alignment with the world of work. So being the largest department at the university means we've been able to establish our own learning team who support our students with their studies. They help with everything from academic writing, referencing, exam techniques, and understanding your assignment feedback. And they deliver these sessions both as timetable classes but also as optional drop-in sessions. We recognise that lots of students like to get their support from other students, so our learning team also coordinate a number of student-led support sessions where we pay other more experienced students to run sessions for students that want to upskill. For example, we have our student Bloombergers who have become experts in that software, and they run drop-in sessions to support other students in getting to grips further with that software. So if you do choose to study at Essex, several of you may be interested in completing a placement year as part of your course. So I'm just going to mention quickly about how they work. So students who do a placement year or a year in industry would do this between their second and final years of study, meaning their course is extended from 3 to 4 years. To secure this kind of placement, students do have to go through a competitive recruitment process alongside students from universities all over the country. But the way this placement works means that students have the freedom to target the organisations that they find most interesting and align with their aspirations. We also have a student development team who are on hand to support prospective placement students with every aspect of the placement journey, from application forms to assessment centres to telephone interviews. Students who do a placement year find them incredibly valuable as it allows them to apply that real world work experience to their studies and research at university. We also find that our students build such brilliant relationships with their placement employers, they often go back to work for them after graduation in full-time employment. So when thinking about university and what courses to do, it's important to think about what benefits you will gain from the course and how the knowledge you will gain will support you in your chosen career. So business and accounting and finance courses at Essex explore enterprising mindsets, new venture creation and innovation in the private, public and voluntary sector. They examine the ways current issues affect the world of business, and our teaching is always in line with current challenges and industry trends. So, for example, recently our accounting and finance students have looked in depth at the effect of Brexit on business and also the pandemic. Business and accounting really does make the world go round, so it's a very topical subject to study, and you'll often find that the topics you learn about are being discussed in the media. Many of our courses will also give you the opportunity to complete professional qualifications alongside your degree. For example, our accounting courses are accredited by the ACCA, which is the largest professional body for accountants. And these accreditations can mean you're exempt for some professional qualifications needed for roles in accounting organisations. And these exemptions will mean you'll stand out in the jobs market as you already have some of the qualifications that employers will definitely need you to have. It's also worth mentioning that you don't need to have studied business or accounting before in order to apply for one of our courses. The only thing that we do ask for is that you do have your GCSE maths. So if you're not studying a business or accounting course at the moment, then don't let that hold you back from applying to us. So lastly, before I hand over to Abdullahi, I wanted to mention the employment support we offer here at Essex Business School. We offer students a lot of support with their employability skills, with the aim of ensuring they secure an excellent graduate level job when they graduate and go on into the jobs market. So we'll invite students to optional career sessions from their very first term here, run by both the business school and the central careers team. They will also be able to get one-to-one employability support to secure an internship or work placement. The university also has this central careers team, and their key role is to support your students to find employability. and they'll work on with you regularly skills like CV writing, interview skills, and also help you seek out some networking opportunities in line with your career aspirations. So do make use of them if you choose to study with us. So I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Abdullahi, who I'm hoping has arrived. Yes, brilliant. I can't see you, so that was wishful thinking. Who is one of our lecturers in accounting here at Essex Business School. So he is going to talk to you a little bit more about details about accounting courses at Essex, and also the careers that can lead to, and also give us a taster session so you'll understand what studying accounting with us will be like. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Emily. So, good afternoon, everyone here now or watching later. My name is Abdullah Ishola. I'm a lecturer in accounting at the Essex Business School. I teach a range of accounting modules, particularly financial reporting and analysis, which is our second year main accounting module, and introduction to accounting, which is our first year main accounting module. So I'm hoping some of you listening today or watching this clip at some point will be joining us in the business school, and you'll be taking the introduction to accounting module, which is a full year module for all our year ones. And in this module, we try to introduce you to what accounting is really about, how you're going to be preparing statements or reports that companies use to communicate their performance to the users of these reports, including the shareholders, who are the owners of the company, government, and any other such party who cares to know about the financial performance of the company. And beyond just being able to prepare this report, we want you to be able to understand and make decisions based on the contents of this report as well. And I'm going to go into a bit more details in this when I'm giving the taster session on how we teach accounting at the business school. And in terms of my research, so typically academics, we also carry out research that informs our teaching or practice of accounting. And I personally research on integrated reporting, sustainability reporting, environmental, social, and governance impact of companies, carbon emissions, carbon accounting, and climate change, and all of these issues around how companies' actions impact on the environment and the society, and how companies communicate such impact to the users or the owners of the company and other stakeholders in the companies. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So, accounting at EBS, at the business school, Essex Business School, what can you expect to learn? Firstly, you're learning how to prepare the statements and also how to provide advice based on that information. So, step one is to know what goes on in the process of generating, preparing, and putting together a set of accounts that basically tell the story of an organization's financial performance. And then you need to be able to understand what these reports mean and provide advice and recommendations based on the reports that you've provided. So you may be that you're advising the company. So maybe you work in a company, you've produced a report and you're advising them, there are some areas of inefficiency, we can cut some costs here to be more efficient. Or it may be clients. You have a client who wants to invest in a company and you're looking at the statement of that company to provide advice. This is a good or worthwhile investment or not. It could be either commercial, public, or private, or not for profit sector. So it could be NGOs, regardless of the type of organization. Every sort of organization you have there has to have an accounting function to understand how they manage their costs, their revenues, and in order to be to operate efficiently. And then we focus in the business school on accounting beyond just the managing costs, cutting costs, managing transactions. So it's beyond just the cost, revenue, or to put more broadly, is beyond just the financial aspect of things. So we're not just concerned with how money moves in a business. We're also concerned and we encourage accountability in terms of ethics. So when you're recommending to a company to maybe cut costs, for example, are you considering the ethical implications of that? So if you're thinking a company should maybe reduce production cost of product, are they going to be reducing the quality? So is that the consequence? If they're reducing the quality, it's having a negative impact on maybe the customers, or you're thinking of reducing employee costs. Does that mean you're going to be creating, you're going to be sacking or letting off many employees for no just cost, just because you want to save, or you are not investing in the necessary sort of protective gear to provide for your employees in order for them to successfully deliver in their role. So you need to think beyond just the numbers. It's not just about this is profitable, this is not, but also what are the ethical aspects of this? What is the larger impact of whatever decision you're recommending to the company and the environment at large? Next slide, please. Thank you. So our accounting programs are accredited by the leading accountancy bodies in the world. The ACCA, Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, is the largest global accountancy body in the world. And depending on the degree or module options you choose to study with us, you could be entitled to claim all 9 possible exemptions from the ACCA's professional exam. ACCA, again, is the leading global body, and it's a qualification that stands out in the job market. So if you want to work as an accountant, it's something that gives you an edge, that makes you stand out. And with by studying here in Essex, you're able to get a sort of boost in taking these professional certification exams. We also have the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, which is more specific. So if you are more interested and focused on the field of management accounting, this is the accountancy body for you to become a member of. And again, depending on the degree or module options you choose, you could be entitled to up to 7 exemptions, which again give you a sort of head start on obtaining this qualification, which helps you to stand out when looking for management accounting related roles. And also we have our programs accredited with the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, which is the chartered accountant body of England and Wales, while ACCA is global body, ICAEW is local to England and Wales. And for ICAEW as well, you could get up to 5 exemptions, which again gives you sort of an head start. And when you intend to get this qualification, it helps you to qualify even faster and have to sit less exams. Next slide, please. At the moment, we have 4 bachelor's program in accounting, 4 undergraduate courses: the BSc Accounting, BSc Accounting and Finance, BSc Accounting with Economics, and BSc Accounting and Management. And all of these courses have the study abroad option as well as the placement year option. My colleague Emily has talked in details about the placement year. It gives you the opportunity to get some practical experience in between your study, while study abroad gives you the opportunity to travel to a different country for a year between your second and the final year to experience a different culture, a different environment, and it just helps you to have a different experience, a different perspective on things. So it's something that our students have enjoyed and have benefited from a lot. So those options are available to you if you do choose to come to the Essex Business School. Next slide, please. Thank you. Right, now for careers. When you study a degree in accounting, what can you do with it? The first thing, accountancy practice. So you could become an accountant, whether in the public sector, in the private sector, in the not-for-profit organization. Like I mentioned earlier, every organization, regardless of their goals, they have an accounting function and they need an accounting function, because organizations have to spend money, they have to account for how they get money, what comes into the business, what goes out of the business, and they need financial backed advice. So you could work as an accountant in any company, no matter what is the line of the business of the company, they have to have an accounting function. Whether it's a small corner shop or a large multinational business, they all have to have accounting function. So you could work as an accountant. You could work as an auditor. In the auditing field, the role pretty much involves it's a legal requirement for companies to have their accounts audited. And so the role of the auditor is to have a look at the statements of companies, of governments, of organizations, and express an opinion as to whether their statements are accurately presented, whether they present a true and fair view, as we call it. So you could be an internal auditor, that is, you're working within the company, or as an external auditor working in companies such as PwC, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, or KPMG. So these are the big four auditing firms out there. And when you work in this type of companies, you serve as an auditor, you have client companies, they prepare their annual reports, you review their records to make sure that the annual reports have been prepared in the correct manner, following the right set of rules, the rules have been correctly applied. So that's what the auditing profession involves. You could also work in the financial services industry. Broadly, think of banks, investment institutions, finance houses, and things of that nature. Again, you're going to be dealing with accounting information, providing relevant recommendations and advices to both the company and to clients. Policy making, this has to do more with the government. So if you're working in a government establishment, you could be advising on where the government needs to invest more money, where they can make some cuts to the budget, where they can be more efficient, what is more urgent. So, for example, the COVID-19 pandemic struck, and you have to have accountants on board to consider the financial implications. How can the government source for money to address the pandemic? Obviously, we all know that the pandemic has cost the government a lot of money over the past 3 years now. But the accountants have to be there to provide information to let the government, this is the implication of the COVID, this is the cost, these are ways by which we can get incomes to address some of these problems. Then you also have consultancy. Basically, you can work as a consultant for companies, individuals, to advise them on different sort of scenarios. It could be investment advisory services. It could be business advisory services generally about how companies can operate more efficiently. And finally, academia. So you could become a lecturer in accounting, like I currently am, and you need to do that through further studies. You're going to need, after your BSc, your bachelor's degree, to go for a master's degree in accounting, which would usually be 1 year. At the Essex Business School, we have a range of master's program, and most of them are 1 year. And then you, after your master's degree, you would need to enroll for a PhD as well. So a doctorate degree in accounting or a related line as well. And then in that program, you get to build and develop your research and teaching skills. And then you can become a lecturer or pursue a career in academics as well. Next slide, please. So right, that's pretty much a brief introduction to what a study of accounting is in the business school, what careers you can expect to make out of it. And now I'm going to give you a slight taster of what we teach, how we teach accounting at the Essex Business School. And as the caption shows, and as mentioned, more than just the numbers. So the key thing is we try to make you focus and think critically beyond just the numbers you're looking at. So if you can go to the next slide now. The first question I want to ask is, what can accounting do to us? What do we think accounting can do to us? It can help us make financially sound decisions. It can help us with our decision making. Think about it at an individual level. You have a sort of amount that you receive as an allowance or as a salary every month, and you have some expenses to pay, whether it's bills, whether it's food costs, rent, whatever the cost may be. So you need to plan and decide what expenses to make or not to make. You want to go out on the weekend with your friends, you need to decide whether it's a good decision to make financially. If you go out with your friends and spend some money, will you have enough left to pay for your rent when it's due? Will you have enough to pay for your bills when they're due? So these are at a micro level, at an individual level, how we perform sort of accounting functions in making decisions. It applies the same way to companies, to governments, in deciding how you appropriate your finance, how you spend money. You need to decide what makes a good expense or not. How can you best invest a certain amount of money you have? How can you budget and plan for your expenses and things of that nature? So basically, with accounting, you can make sound decision. You can make judgments about how monies should be spent. Then another thing to mention here is many decisions, whether they're big or small, you have to make it using accounting numbers. So whether the government wants to invest in a new project, or a company wants to pursue a new client, or an individual wants to buy a car or buy a house, things like this are all financial decisions that need to be made, based on accounting numbers. So you need to be able to compare the costs. For example, compare the cost of making that decision. This decision is going to cost me £1 million. What is the benefit? Say the benefit is £10 million. So you can compare then to say, okay, the benefit outweighs the cost, and I think I should go for it. So this is at a basic level how we make decisions using accounting numbers. And also, accounting makes certain things visible while leaving others invisible, in the sense that things that you may otherwise not pick out, it brings it to the fore. It helps you to put a value on items that normally do not have a financial sort of value. It helps you to understand the effect of non-financial items on the company. For example, climate change. So a company may have carbon emissions, high level of carbon emissions, for example, which obviously contributes negatively to the environment. And so this comes back to affect the company through share prices and market valuation. We have research studies published in the top journals that show that the market participants penalize companies for having poor carbon emissions or carbon policies. And when companies make effort to do better, the market tends to appreciate that and reward by valuing the company even better. So through accounting, we can see that even the sort of non-financial action of carbon emissions and the contribution to climate change comes back to the company and has a sort of financial, measurable, observable financial effect. Next slide, please. So when you're using accounting information to make decisions, typically decision making would be centered on choosing the best amongst alternatives. So there are different lines of action you could take. There are different opportunities or decision channels available for you, and your task is to make the optimal one, to make the choice that seems the best option available for you. And one of the common ways to do this is what we call the cost benefit analysis, which at the basic level involves comparing the cost of a decision to the benefits of that decision. If you say buy a new car, the cost associated with it over the next 5 years is approximately £2 million, for example. And the benefit you're going to generate from that is £2,500,000. So it means the benefit outweighs the cost. So at the basic level, it's a good investment decision. It's a good choice to make. Or you have another alternative. If you don't spend that 2 million on a motor vehicle and you spend it on maybe a house, the house is going to be worth £3 million in the next 5 years as well. So that gives you a more or a higher benefit relative to the car option, right? So now you think, oh, this is the better one. Basically, you are comparing the net financial effects of each alternative. That is the net position of the cost and benefit of each decision, of each alternative before making a decision. So you want to see which one gives the overall best position, and then you take the decision to go with whichever option gives you the best alternative. And beyond this basic idea, we try to emphasize also the non-financial aspects. So when companies are making investment decisions, for example, you want to go beyond just is this a financially viable project? Also, is it ethical? Is it sustainable? How does this project affect the environment? Is it a project that's going to increase pollution? Is it a product that's going to increase waste dumping in the oceans? So you need to consider as well the ethical and the sustainability aspects of the decision making beyond the financial. Okay. Right. So next slide, please. To give an example here, we have a company that has 2 branches in Colchester and Southampton, and the company is looking to operate more efficiently. The recent accounts of the 2 companies, or the 2 branches, sorry, are shown on the left-hand side here. And what can we see from the numbers? We can see that based on the income, the Colchester branch has £1.5 million, while Southampton branch have £2.5 million. When you look at the income alone, you think Southampton branch is the better branch because it's performing better, right? But then if you look at the costs, the cost for the Colchester branch is 1 million and the cost for the Southampton branch is 2 million. And then the profit of both branches are £0.5 million. So it means after taking into consideration the costs, we see that the branches are actually very similar in their performance. They have the same absolute value. If we were to calculate, say, their gross profit margin, we take the profit as a percentage of the income. For the Colchester branch, is going to be about 33%, while for the Southampton branch is going to be about 20%. So even though they have the same profit amount of £0.5 million, the profit margin tells us that the Colchester branch is doing better. Right? They are keeping their costs low, and even though they have a lower revenue, a larger percentage of their income becomes profit relative to the Southampton branch. And you also observe the number of employees. The Colchester branch has 150 employees compared to Southampton branch's 600 employees. So they are working with a smaller sort of resource base, smaller sort of employee base, and generating a superior profit margin. So if the company is thinking of operating more efficiently, they may think of, for example, expanding the Colchester branch, moving out some of the staff from the Southampton branch to the Colchester branch so they can increase the capacity at Colchester whilst also reducing the costs in the Southampton branch. This is just an example of what may be done, but then there are several different ways decisions can be made regarding this beyond just these numbers, but we're showing on the basis of just the accounting information. By looking at just the profit figures, we can't pick and choose between the 2 companies. But when we put the figures into context by calculating the profit margins, which is one of the sort of analysis tools we use in interpreting financial statements, we see that the Colchester branch appears to be performing better, and we can perhaps advise the company to invest more in the Colchester branch to try to expand their operations. Of course, that's subject to the availability of the market to do so and several other factors. Next slide, please. Another example we have here, we have 3 of the largest retail companies in the UK here: Tesco, Sainsbury's, and Morrisons. And the revenues of these 3 companies for the year 2013 is presented here. You have 64,826 for Tesco, 23,303 for Sainsbury's, and 18,116 for Morrisons. And similar to earlier, when you look at the revenue, you observe that Tesco has by far the highest revenue. So if you are asking the question which company is doing better, then you're going to say Tesco is doing better. Likewise, if you look at the gross profits, Tesco has 4,089 compared to 1,277 and 1,206 for Sainsbury's and Morrisons respectively. Again, Tesco is doing better in terms of the gross profit, and the same thing for the operating profit. So if you're asked the question which company is better, you would want to say Tesco. But again, if we put this cost into context by comparing the profits with the revenue, so the gross profit margin of Tesco, which is the gross profit divided by the revenue, would fall at about 6%. And for Sainsbury's would be about 5.5%, while for Morrison's would be about 6.5% or thereabout. So this would tell you and would change the picture slightly to say that Morrison's is performing better than the other two. That's because even though Tesco has a very high revenue volume, they have, compared to that revenue, the profit figure is rather low, right? So it means that they have a high cost as well. Alongside the high revenue, they have a very high cost of sales, which means they have low profit relative to their revenue compared to Morrison's. So if you were to compute the same margins for operating profit as well, dividing the profit by revenue, you'd see again that Morrison's comes on top. So even though Morrison's have the least of the revenue, it appears to be the better company based on the profit margins because they have significantly lower costs and are better able to keep their costs low relative to the other two retailers. Right, thinking about how accounting affects us in our day-to-day life. And an example I have here is how NHS costs are being cut. So in the new budget being prepared, it is expected that some of the NHS costs will be cut, will be reduced, and there's warnings being sounded by the NHS leaders as well as some leaders of Labour that it's going to affect healthcare delivery. So when the government is choosing to cut some costs that relates to a vital sort of organization such as the NHS, it's going to affect the delivery of service and care to individuals like yourself and myself, right? So when they cut costs, particularly the vulnerable people. So an example is how government has decided to cancel free COVID-19 testing. So obviously that's an avenue to cut the cost that would otherwise be spent on that, right? So the government is avoiding that cost. But then it may mean that people who need assistance, people who need the help to get tested will not have access to that. Right? So this is an example of how the accounting decision to reduce cost comes back to affect and have an impact on you and me as individuals who use the service of the NHS. And this is not the first time NHS is experiencing budget cuts. It's been happening over time. So we have a demonstration of how the accounting decision of the government plays a role on individuals like yourself and myself. Another example away from NHS could be how the rules regarding students financing are changing, right? The government, for example, may want to increase the threshold for access to the finance or increase the amount available. These are policies that they could put in place, again, based on accounting information that have real world effects. It could be how salaries paid to government officials are. Maybe the government chooses to review that upward. Of course, this monies come from taxpayers' money as well. So it's again is an accounting decision that they've weighed the cost and sort of the benefits related to, and they've chosen to make these policies and decisions, but then they have an actual impact on everyone. Next slide, please. And you have an interesting diagram here, a cartoon here, which depicts how accounting can also make people to act strangely or make them to take decisions other than what you would expect. So at the start of every year, every company prepares budgets. You budget amounts you expect to spend on certain things. And what sometimes happens is that towards the end of the year, they realize they're yet to spend some of those amounts that have been budgeted. Rather than sort of cancel out that heading and say, okay, we did not end up spending this year and that's it. You find that sometimes accountants may want to make sure they spend that, because if you budgeted to spend an amount in the current year but don't spend it, then there's going to be sort of no justification for you to include that item again in the budget the next year, right? So rather than them have that item go out of the budget next year or receive a lower amount in the budget next year, they then make sure they spend it. Say, for example, from January to early December, they budgeted $10,000 on IT equipment and they are yet to purchase any during the year. December comes, they may decide to get $10,000 worth of mouse pads and just keep it. So that way they've actually spent the money they've budgeted to spend, and the budget remains the same next year or even increases rather than decreasing by them saying, oh, we did not need to spend this amount. So it could make people take some rather strange decisions in this way. Next slide, please. In the same vein, it could make people act or think in a calculable or calculative manner. So it could be, for example, for students, it could make you start to wonder and plan what you need to focus on or not. So which topics that you've been taught in the module do you pay more attention to? Then you start to think, will this come out in the exam? If it's going to be a topic in the exam, then you want to put more effort into that topic. If it would not, you probably ignore it, even though these topics may have or bear significance beyond just your passing in that program. Or your attendance. How important is attendance record for me? Maybe you choose to attend lectures or classes simply because of the attendance, or thinking about how things affect GPA or your grade point average. Sometimes students emphasize on finding out whether a particular assessment contributes to their overall module mark, and they find this out, or they want to know this because it helps them to decide how much of effort to put into the assessment. If it's a formative one that does not sort of count towards the final module mark, sometimes students put in less effort to such assessments relative to the ones they know would affect their GP. So these are examples of how we sort of weigh cost and benefits, which is an accounting phenomenon in even our day-to-day lives, and it makes us very calculative. Next slide, please. But going forward into the future, the role of accounting is changing. It's broadening beyond just us, again, like we said, focusing on the financial, but also on the non-financial aspect. How does every decision the company is making affect its society and its environment? How does it contribute to the sort of stability of the environment, or how does it harm the environment? When a company is making productions, how much carbon emissions are they emitting? How much waste are they dumping in the rivers that are harming the aquatic life, and things of that nature? So accountants' job is sort of evolving to help companies think about not just finance, but also anything beyond finance or extra financial aspects, things around impacts, things around the consequences of their actions. And it helps companies as well. So the accountants are helping companies as well to sort of be more accountable to a broad range of stakeholders, including customers, their employees, the government, and the general public at large, about how they are more responsible, how they are doing things in a way that does not harm the environment, does not harm the planet. So the current state, the current picture in the field of accounting and looking into the future is that accountants' role now involves emphasizing on impacts of companies' action beyond financial. Okay, so next one, please. To sort of wrap up what how we focus on and how we communicate accounting knowledge in the business school. Understand that even though the example I've given here is at a very simple level, the key message being communicated is that accounting records and accounting information helps you to understand what is going on, where there may be a problem, and they help us to make decisions. But also importantly, beyond just the numbers, accounting information also helps us to direct our attention to non-financial aspects, right? Non-financial consequences. For example, a company may have a bad or poor carbon emissions, and through the accounting information, we can see that this comes back to harm the company through valuation of the company. So it has a negative effect on the valuation of the company, or maybe it has a negative effect on the share price of the company. So accounting information can help us to understand how even non-financial items have an impact on the company. Next slide, please. So the final thing I want to mention today is the research being carried out in the Essex Business School Accounting Group. Our research is spread over 5 key areas generally, and across each of these areas, we try to, our academics, develop quality, world-leading research that has impact on how companies, countries, governments make decisions, and how things are being done. For example, very recently, we have some of our academics involved in the development of a new code of corporate governance for Ghana, an African country, which is one of the major developing economies in Africa. So this is some of the work being done from our business school. Recently as well, we have some of our professors who have developed links with governments in Nepal, Bangladesh, and countries in Southeast Asia on how they can be more responsible in terms of budgeting, accounting, and making decisions, how they can be more effective. And so everything we're trying to teach you, we also infuse active research, what is going on out there, what is being known in the world, what is being sort of impacted on real life participants, that is the companies, the government. We also infuse a bit of that into our teaching. So that's all I wanted to talk to you about today, and now I'll be glad to take any questions.
Yeah, also happy to take any general questions about EBS if anyone has them. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so I can see. But that's our email on the screen now. If you wanted to send anything afterwards, we're ebs@essex.ac.uk. So feel free to get in touch at any point.
Thank you so much, Abdulali. I have a question. Sometimes I read about accounting being automated and being replaced by software. Maybe you've already covered this when you talked about measuring the impact of companies beyond finances. I just wonder what was your view on this?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would say indeed, yes. Compared to, say, 20 years ago, we now have some accounting softwares that help us to prepare accounts to an extent. But then the role of an accountant is not fixed. It changes, it evolves, right? So even though we have systems that can help in preparing the accounts, you still need people that can interpret and understand what's going on and make decisions. So the software can only do so much, and the most I've seen with the software we have there is to be able to prepare the accounts. You still need people to evaluate what the contents mean. You still need people to actually set up the systems themselves. There are accountants involved in producing these systems themselves, and accountants still need to operate the system. But beyond that, even after the report, what next? The decision-making stage is where you really need the human input, and you can't substitute that, especially when nowadays we have to be careful, companies have to be careful with the impact of every decision they make. So if you decide you want to train your staff, what does that mean for the company? If you were to just look at the financials, it's an expense, right? And you think, oh, this is an expense, we'd rather avoid it. But beyond that, you could see things like you could improve employee loyalty, you could improve productivity, and that in turn, in the long run, would benefit the company. So there are these aspects that are non-financial, even though they bear financial consequences, that needs an human input. So years ago, people used to say accounting is one field that will be phased out, but it's not happened, and it's not going to happen because the role is not fixed. it keeps evolving with the needs of the time. Accounting has always been there, will always be there, because there's always a need for accounting, regardless of the function you're making.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question about the placements? You said majority of students find placements and then go on to work. Do they find it after they've just done ordinary placements or when they've actually gone abroad?
Either really. So you can do a placement year abroad as well as a sort of a study year abroad. So we just tend to find that students that go on placements build up really great relationships with the people they do their placement with. It's not always, but quite regularly we've had people do placements with places that like Deloitte, and then they've gone and done a graduate scheme with them. So it's just an additional opportunity that's available to you really. But like I say, you can do that abroad or stay in the UK and do it.
Right, and all of the students actually get a placement?
Yes, yeah, on the whole, so we will support them with it. It is a competitive environment, like I mentioned, because you're competing with other UK university students also looking for placements, but we have a team dedicated to helping you get them. And yeah, on the whole, that students always get a placement. It may not necessarily be their first choice placement, but we will make sure they get one. Yeah.
Okay.
And they don't have to do a placement as well. That's important to mention. If you'd rather not, there's nothing wrong with that. More than happy just to do your straight 3 years. That's absolutely fine as well.
Right, okay, thank you.
Real.
Great. Thank you so much for delivering such an informative session. I'm sure our students will really enjoy it and will benefit from it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank
you.
you.
Thanks
Thank you
very
very
much. Bye
Take
all.
care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
I've lost my mouse. I can't leave.